Hi, it's Dr. Syra. I have a friend who recently gave me this book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And there was something in here that I wanted to share with you, and there may be other things as I read that I thought would be interesting for this week's video. Human beings are capable of thinking about their problems, reliving past events, or even forecasting future worst case scenarios, and thus turning on the cascade of stress chemicals by thought alone. We can knock our brains and bodies out of normal physiology just by thinking about an all too familiar past or trying to control an unpredictable future. This is not a new concept, but I really like how Joe Dispenza talks about it here because it's very simple, right? Because of the way our brain is wired, we're able to think about the past or the future and create a change in chemistry in our physical bodies. Now, that could be a great thing because it means that with the power of my imagination, I could create contentment and peace and relaxation right now. Even if my right now moment isn't fantastic, I could actually create a fantastic moment because of what I think. But often our brains do the opposite, right? So it's like you take a neutral moment and you load in things from the past or worries from the future, and this neutral moment now becomes an anxious, stressed out, worried moment. Now, why is this problematic? Well, first of all, because you feel anxious, stressed out, and worried, but also because when we're in that elevated state of stress, there's not a lot of room for creativity. There's not a lot of room for unexpected solutions, right? When we have that activation of fight or flight, the rest of our systems are very quiet. So our systems that have to do with social engagement, that have to do with creative endeavors, that have to do with flow and rest and creativity, those are all quieted when we're in fight or flight. Now, when people think fight or flight, they often think like, running from a tiger or getting in a car accident. And that's one kind of that's where our bodies should kind of like respond when our life is in danger. But for many of us, we're walking around in that fight or flight mode all the time. And it's been happening for so long that we've got accustomed to what it feels like in the body. A lot of people, when they start coming to therapy with me or they start doing their personal growth work, they'll have a period where they feel a bit bored. Where like there's not a lot of drama in their lives and it's like life feels kind of boring. And when that happens, what that tells me is that their nervous system is recalibrating away from that highly activated state where they're continually coursing stress hormones through their body. It doesn't feel comfortable because you've kind of acclimatized to this high level of stress, but eventually it feels like the new normal, right? So I wanted to share this with you because I feel like that language is kind of it's coming more and more into the mainstream around, for example, you might have heard polyvagal theory or the sympathetic nervous system, or you might have heard some of these different kind of technical words floating around what happens in the body when we're under stress. You might have heard of stress hormones or cortisol, adrenaline. The easiest way to remember it is my mind can change my body chemistry. My mind can change my body chemistry. It can change it in a positive direction, a peaceful direction, a contented direction. It can also change it in a stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed direction. But my mind can do that. Your mind can actually do that. Now, this isn't the same as so another way of thinking of it is, people say your thoughts create your reality. However, when you're in that activated state, you're not accessing the creative thoughts that you want. So meditation is actually one of the ways that we can train our minds to get out of that high state of activation, right? We can train our minds to be in a calmer, quieter, more open, receptive place so that we have access to that more regularly. So then when we do get in a situation that's stressful for us, we have the capacity to pull ourselves out of it and be in an observer mind rather than right in the middle of the biology that's happening. There are people who spend decades rolling around in the same turmoil, because they keep recreating that biological response in them with their thoughts, with their beliefs. So a belief is just a thought that you think over and over and over again and you've convinced yourself is true. Belief is a thought you've thought over and over and over again and you've convinced yourself is true. And you may have other people around you that also agree with you that it's true. Beliefs can change as thoughts change. I've had this experience in my own life over the last couple of years where the things I used to believe about the world, about people, about myself, about mental health are profoundly changing because I've had experiences that demonstrate to me that those beliefs are simply untrue or at least limited. There may be some truth to them, but those beliefs are limited in the way that I used to see wellness and healing. I had a limited belief around that. And now I have a much more expanded belief around what's possible in our human experiences. So that's my thoughts for you today, and to really challenge you to think about where you have some agency to change your chemistry internally, which will then change what's possible for you, right? If you're not just rolling around in the pain of the past and predicting the stress of the future, well, then there's something else. There's a different opportunity there altogether. Right? And there's a requirement that we get out of that heightened state in order to even access that still point or that pause. You have to be able to get out of that state. How do you do that? We're talking a lot about how to do that in our community that's being launched here pretty soon. And so you can come and join our community meditations or come into some of our courses to start to learn how to actually quiet down. And there's simple things that you could even watch in some of the videos we've already made around breathing techniques and things like that. But what I'm also finding is many of us are out there trying to do this in silos individually. What we're trying to do is bring together a group of people that all have the similar intentions. And that way we amplify the work, not just elevating ourselves individually, but amplifying the work to have a bigger reach. And each person in that community gets the benefit of the group, the power of the group. So more on that to come. But yeah, I just wanted to share that little piece from Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. If you haven't looked into his work, it's absolutely fascinating, especially for those who are interested in the science of how manifesting and having the life you want. If you're interested in the more scientific side of that, he really explains it in simple language. So he's got lots of YouTube videos and books and teachings. So check him out if you haven't already, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and we will see you next time. Bye.